First timers, raise your hand. First time. Welcome. Wait, no, you're not first timer. Sorry. Who raised your hand? Liar. Liars, raise your hand. Welcome. Looking forward to this. We got so how this works, since we got just a handful of first timers, is it's most likely unlike another mastermind or meetup you've done, whereas this is focused on, we have a couple components. One is we have an interview component. So I usually interview a guest, and today we are doing interview. We got 240 units. Gaston has 240 units, so we're going to interview him. I'm going to record it for YouTube, for my podcast, and in addition to that, any questions along the way, feel free to hold them until the end, and we'll do a Q&A session at the end. And then, welcome back. Then, we're proud dad right here, first time dad.
Yeah, thank you.
Noted. I hear you. I can empathize. After we do the interview, after you ask questions, then we'll break out into small groups. Got about 40 or so people here, eyeballing. 40, 50 people here. So we'll break up into like groups of 7, 8 or so, whatever that math works out to be. And then you'll go through this, and we'll talk about that after we get done, in case that's fresh on your mind. Got cell phones, please mute those suckers during this conversation, since we're going to be recording it. And that's it. Sound good? Ready to rock? It's going to be fun. This will be good. 240 units you own all by your lonesome. That's damn good. All right, looking forward to this. Is this the mic?
What?
That's it? This little thing? All right. This sounds good?
It does.
All right.
And no one can mess it up by touching it.
Okay. I.e. me?
Maybe.
Best ever listeners, how you doing? Welcome to the Best Real Estate Investing Advice Ever show. I'm Joe Fairless. This is the world's longest running daily real estate investing podcast, where we only talk about the best advice ever. We don't get into any of that fluffy stuff. With us today, Gaston, Teran. How you doing, Gaston?
Good, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And we are in Cincinnati, Ohio at the Best Ever Meetup. Website is bestevercincy.com.
Yes.
Bestevercincy.com. If you want to come check out, hang out with us. We've got visitors usually we have them from all over the surrounding states. We do it the last Tuesday of every month, and we are going to be talking to Gaston today. He is a real estate investor based in Cincinnati, Ohio. He's the president of GT Apartments. He's got 240 units, and these 240 units are his 240 units. He has not syndicated. He has not raised any money. These are his 240 units that he has. He's built this portfolio from zero. He started building his multifamily portfolio while working full-time as a corporate controller, left the accounting world to be a full-time real estate investor, and we're going to get into it right now. So with that being said, Gaston, you want to give the best ever listeners a little bit more about your background and your focus?
Sure. The bread and butter of how my business works has not changed. What we do is we buy distressed multifamily, preferably large, in bad neighborhoods. And when we go in, usually the occupancy low, there's tons of deferred maintenance. We go in, we fix them up, both inside and outside. We get the occupancy up, we raise rents, increase the value, and then hold long term. And then also there's usually a cash out refi component to it, which then funds future purchases.
You buy in bad neighborhoods.
Yes.
That's the opposite of the advice I typically read in books. Buy the worst property in the best neighborhood. So why do you do that?
Well, I would buy a distressed property in a nice neighborhood, but usually distressed properties are in bad neighborhoods.
Got it. Okay. So you got 240 units now. Let's do a timeline.
Sure.
And the progression from 0 to 240 as medium level as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So first property was what?
It was a 4-family in 2007.
You brought a spreadsheet.
I did,
not
because there's a
know
lot
that.
of numbers here.
Nice.
And
All
you
right.
like to talk about numbers, so I
do.
want to be
All right.
ready.
Good. Okay, so first property was what?
a four-family in 2007, and I held that. I didn't think much of it. I wasn't going to go into real estate. It was just an investment to park my money. And I really got more serious with it in 2013 when I bought an 18 unit.
Okay.
And on that one, I will note that as we were trying to raise the funds, I had a hell of a time trying to raise the funds. The banks wouldn't talk to me. Finally, I did get my mom in as a minority investor for the first 2 deals. But since then, it's been me 100%.
Got it. All right. So before we jump into the 18 unit, 2007 to 2013, you did not purchase anything.
Right.
2010 through 12 was, in hindsight, was a pretty good time to purchase. So what were you doing at that point? Was the 2007 purchase a purchase that was bought at the top of the market and you were underwater?
No, I'm pretty cheap. And you know, in the accounting world, I always was saving money, and so I wanted to invest. I didn't know what I wanted to invest it in. Did the four-family, did stocks, was kind of lingering around, figuring out how I want to invest my money.
Okay. And so you were figuring it out. What ultimately led you in the direction of, okay, I want to go larger?
You know, after some time, I realized that four-family, if I scaled up, could make some good money. And so I started looking a little bit more seriously. And I said, you know, if the numbers are right, this can be really lucrative. And so that's when I started seriously looking.
And what did you do did you act on that thought with the four-family?
Well, I mean, this is while I was owning the four-family.
Okay.
I was looking then, this would be the 2012-13.
Got it. Okay, so then you purchased the 18 unit. How'd you find the 18 unit?
It was on MLS.
On the MLS, and are you a real estate agent?
I'm not.
So did you work with one to find it for you?
No, I mean, it was. I found it on one of the listings, contacted the realtor, and then went from there.
So do you have access to MLS as a non-real estate agent?
Yeah, just the website. It's a different realtor website.
Got it. Okay, so a broker had it.
Yes.
They were marketing it,
Yes.
and you reached out to the broker.
Yep.
And then what?
Well, I had about 2/3. I'd saved up quite a bit. I probably had 60% of the money to buy it, and I thought surely a bank is going to put up half. Let me put in half, you put in half, it's safe for the bank. I couldn't get a bank to look at it. You know, that property was in rough shape. I mean, not terrible, but it was in rough shape. It was probably 60% economic occupancy. And so those numbers hurt. And I didn't really have a track record at the time. So I was really getting nowhere with the banks.
And for anyone who's not aware of economic versus physical occupancy, will you explain the difference?
Sure. Well, it had physical occupancy 90-something%, meaning of the apartments, about over 90% were occupied, but a lot of those people weren't paying. And so roughly 60% were paying.
The 4-unit that you bought, was it fully occupied?
Yes.
Okay. So you went from a fully occupied 4-unit and then an 18-unit that you're looking at, 60% economic occupancy in a rough area?
Yes.
What areas, for people familiar with Cincinnati?
Price Hill.
Price Hill. So an 18-unit that is 60% occupied, economic occupancy, 90% plus physical, which means you're going to have to boot a bunch of people, most likely.
Boot a lot of people.
Boot a lot of people. So you're undertaking a major project. Did you know going into it, having not purchased a property of this size, what you were getting into?
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine. I haven't gone through it. With the 4-family, I have done enough maintenance where I had kind of taught myself. And so I was more comfortable with that. I was a little less comfortable with evictions since I've only done 1 or 2 at that point. But I was ready for it, and I went for it.
So how much was the total purchase? Well, total price, purchase price first. How much was that?
It was $190,000.
$190,000.
It was a steal.
Okay. when you said 1.9, I was thinking 1.9. Okay, $190,000, which still would have been completely on the opposite direction. I'm crazy. Okay, so $190,000. So they're giving it away, essentially. You have 60% saved up, and your mom ended up loaning you the remaining 40% to buy it all cash.
Yes.
Got it. Then what? You closed on it, now what?
Closed on it, and we went right to work with the evictions, the deferred maintenance, and slowly, I mean, some of the incoming, because of my lack of experience, some of the incoming people, weren't the greatest either, but slowly but surely, we improved, and that was great.
Because of your lack of experience, what aspect of it, if you presented something similar in the future, what would you do differently?
You can't be a landlord with a heart. When people give excuses, even if they're good, they could be crying, whatever. As a landlord, as an experienced landlord, you can't do that. Everything's got to be black and white. If they're late, they're late. See you later. That was too soft there.
Okay, I imagine collecting rent was challenging. In a tough area, that's a hard part of it usually. So what was your approach for collecting rent?
Just to be on top of it, and that makes a big difference. Sometimes property managers get into trouble because they try to do everything remotely, especially when they're not familiar with the tenant base. And really, I was very hands-on. I was there all the time working on it, got to know the tenants, and that really helped me. Will
you define that a little bit more on being on top of it? Like, what if I'm a tenant? How am I most likely going to pay you my rent?
At that time, I was accepting money order or cash in person. I don't do that anymore, but that's how I did it. But by staying on top of it, meaning by the 7th, if you haven't paid, I'm knocking on your door, or soon after giving you eviction notice. So I'm on top of it. I'm not letting it go till the 12th or something of the month.
What's a story of, and I don't know if there is one, but I imagine there is one. What's a story of a challenging time when you were knocking on the door on the 7th for rent and you got a less than warm response?
Usually you didn't get that. Usually it's a lot of excuses. Hey, come back tomorrow, or I'll pay you on Friday, and that sort of thing. Usually they're kind of weaseling out of it. You usually don't get the sharp response for a rent collection.
Okay. How much in total did you put into that property?
$20,000.
$20,000.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. The reason is because there wasn't major. The roof was good. It was a lot of bathroom, plumbing, that kind of thing, and I did all myself. So I'm not counting any labor, and that always plays a big part of it.
I mean, just the unit turns. I usually have a calculator in front of me, but I don't right now. When the unit turns alone have to be like a couple thousand, and you evicted a lot of people, right? And I mean, labor aside, just like the materials and stuff.
Yeah. So when you do a unit turn, a lot of the cost is in flooring. And so always I try to harden the apartments by having something hard on the floor. That one had the benefit of being hardwood floor. And fortunately, there wasn't a lot of ruined floors. They didn't have quite the luster, but they were still something where you could just clean, mop, move on to the next one. Nowadays, we do as much as possible real ceramic tile. Looks good, it's durable, you mop it and you go. I hate paying for carpet. Carpet get expensive, especially when you have high turnover. And in bad neighborhoods, you tend to have higher turnover.
And then do you do anything for the second and third floor units due to noise factor with just that type of flooring?
No.
No complaints?
No, not really.
Sleeping common area, or like the bedrooms all have that type of flooring?
Yes.
Anywhere have carpet?
Some just, we haven't gotten around to switching them. Sometimes if I'll get in a bind, I'll just begrudgingly go carpet, just because it's fast.
Yeah.
Like that, the next day carpet's in.
So all in, $210,000.
Yep.
Did you refinance that one?
Yep.
And what was the refinance valuation?
That was 360 was the appraisal, and this was several years ago.
You still have it?
I do have it.
Okay.
The cash out, it wasn't an ideal. Usually I try to get 75% of the appraisal value, cash out minus what's owed on it. This one, it was only a 50, in the end, it was only a 50%, but I still got 180 out. So I almost got all my money back.
And what's the economic occupancy today?
100%.
100%. You're collecting 100% of the rents every month?
And they're good people, good family people. They're none of those drug deals that used to go on. Even though the surrounding neighborhood's bad, the people in there are great.
And tips for someone who's buying in that type of area to get 100% economic occupancy?
Well, the first thing, the most important thing, is you have to find who the troublemakers are. And you could, if you're working there, you'll kind of see it. Find out who your best tenants are, just kind of by observation, by talking to them. Get friendly with them. You know, if they get comfortable with you and they know that you won't say, hey, so-and-so told me that so-and-so, they're gonna rat out who the troublemakers are, and you make sure you get those troublemakers out of there, because that's the first thing you need to do.
What's the second?
Then would be, the second most important would be, of course, rents.
Yep, collecting money, important. in
And
real
kick out
estate.
people who are not, who
Yes.
are the habitual liars or people that want to keep delaying.
What's the third?
I guess it would be related to maintenance.
Okay.
You really need, decent looking building. You can't have work orders lapse, that kind of thing.
What's your time frame for getting the work orders?
Depends what it is. But generally, it really depends what it is. If it's an emergency, it would be, we don't come out in the middle of the night unless we say flood or fire. Otherwise, it's next day. But just something typical might be a week. You know what it is.
What's a typical maintenance request?
A drain is slow. Maybe cockroaches. Those depend, because
Right.
sometimes if we're there, we'll do it
Got
there.
it.
We don't want it to go.
So you self-manage, right?
I used to.
You used to, during the 18-unit days.
Yes.
You were self-managing.
Yes.
Is there a way, to the best of your ability to answer this question, to implement step one of that process when you hire a property management company?
Well, you hope that the property management company knows and will do it. I would suggest if you do that, I don't know, depending where you live, but check up on the place often.
And when you say often, how often were you there?
I was there probably 4 days a week.
And you had a full-time job at the time?
Not 4 full days, but like after work, I'd go over there.
Got
Yes,
it.
I have a full-time account.
Got it. All right. So 18-unit, bought it for all in 210, a reappraisal for 360,
Yep.
360, and then what'd you do after that?
The next property was in 2015, so 2 years later, was a 24 unit. Same neighborhood.
Okay. Numbers?
Cost was $325,000. And that required no rehab. That would had about 85% economic occupancy. It did not need much at all.
Why were
I
they
got
selling?
lucky. I don't know. He was out of state. I don't know why he was selling.
Okay. And then what, did you get a refinance on that?
No.
No?
Did not.
Okay. And is it because there wasn't a value add component, so it wouldn't be as friendly of a refi?
I probably will get a cash out refi on that one, but I have not.
Okay. Anything interesting to note on that deal?
It's become kind of a high demand area, so I always get calls, people want to buy it, and I go, no.
What's the area?
It's also price hill.
Okay.
But that specific area is price hill.
Okay. Got it. And what about the next one?
Next one was a 56 unit, 5 months later. This was probably my biggest home run. This was a 56 unit for $400,000.
How'd you buy it? How'd you finance the one right before, and then we'll talk
okay.
about the
Yes.
property?
Yes. The 24 unit
Yeah.
was a traditional bank financing.
Okay, so is
Since that was in good shape,
yeah,
the
yeah,
banks would
then
listen
they'll,
to me.
then they'll do it,
Yes.
of course. And what bank did you use?
US Bank.
Okay. And what, do you remember the terms?
US Bank, I don't know if I should say this, but they have incredible terms, but they're scared of their own shadow. So if you have good property, I would suggest them. But if you have anything, any problems, any defects, they're going to run away. The interest rate was about 3.5. It was a great interest rate.
And were you under contract in any of your properties in your portfolio with US Bank and then they backed out?
Yes, one time.
Well, tell us that story and then we'll get to the O-Face property.
Okay. I was under contract. I talked to them. They said they were interested. They ordered the appraisal 3 or 4 months later, or sorry, 3 or 4 weeks later. I mean, they really let it wait. They said, you know, the P&L is negative. We're going to back out. But fortunately, another bank stepped in and financed it.
Got it. What was your thought process as a real estate investor, entrepreneur?
I was surprised. That was I mean, this is later on, but that was a hell of a deal. I had experience, money, credit, everything. I thought for sure this would go, and it didn't. And so when I went to the second bank, I said, then it worked out.
What bank is that one?
Central Valley Bank.
Central Valley. Got it. All right, 56 unit, purchased it for $400,000, right? 56 unit?
56 unit.
Purchased for $400,000. Where is that
400,000.
located? Westwood. Okay. What can you tell us about the business plan?
That required a more intense rehab. It was 5 buildings. 4 of the 5 roofs were leaking. It was half empty, and it wasn't because they couldn't. It's basically half of the units were down maintenance-wise.
Wow. Please continue.
So by this time, I had some employees. These were kind of low-cost employees, but we got the job done. And that was about $100,000 rehab.
$100,000 rehab to rehab approximately 25 to 27 units from
Yes.
not habitable to
Yes.
habitable.
Yes.
What? So I don't know what that is. That a 2,500 unit? Did I do that math right?
About 2,000.
2,000 a unit.
Yep.
Tell us more about like what you had to do per unit, how much each of the things was, just to elaborate more.
Okay. The electrical was in good shape. We didn't have to touch the electrical. Plumbing, it's not major main drain type of plumbing, but just, you know, the fixtures, the P-traps, those little dinky things here and there.
What's a P-trap?
Under the sink, under your sink, the little that catches water and goes down. Those things, they're pretty simple. They're, you know, just $4 at the store. They're low cost, but just labor.
Got it. Okay, so you put in $100,000, you bought it for $400,000, so all in $500,000.
Yep.
And you have refinanced this one?
I did do a cash out refi.
Over what period of time from when you bought it to when you did the refinance?
About 15 months.
15 months, okay.
That was just a little over a year.
And how did you know the work that needed to be done in order to increase the value? Were you thinking about it that way?
No. I was thinking about the line of this full, and then we need to get it nice enough where we can raise the rent.
Okay.
I mean, this is a tougher neighborhood, so we're not going to go real fancy with it, but we want it to be nice. And so usually if you just think in that way, get the rents up, the value comes with it.
Mm-hmm. And how far away, for anyone not from Cincinnati, is Westwood from Price?
4 or 5 miles.
And how far away do you live from these two properties?
4 or 5 miles.
Okay, so it was rather
Pretty
convenient
close,
for you
yes.
to get to both of them?
Yes.
And were you still in a renovation process with any of your other properties when you purchased this Westwood one?
No.
Okay, so you were fully dedicated
Yes.
to this, but did you have your full-time job?
Yes.
You still, and was it, how many hours a week were you working? Full-time?
40.
40 hours a week, what?
At least.
At least, what were your hours, 8 to 5?
Yeah, 8 to 5.
Okay, you go into an office?
Yep.
So you're going to an office, where how long was your commute?
Short, maybe 20 minutes each
Okay,
way.
so 20 minutes each way, plus you're working 8 to 5, and you have a property that is half occupied, or half vacant, I
Yep.
should say, think about it that way. And it's you and who else helping you?
We had about I'd say three guys that used to help me, mostly on the weekends.
Okay, and how did you find those guys?
One was a tenant, and the other were two of his buddies, basically.
And how were you dividing and conquering the responsibilities?
We were working together. These are not guys that you can pretty much leave alone and say, take care of the whole building. So I had to work with them side by side. Had some frustrating things, but we got the job done at a low cost.
And what was an example of a frustrating thing?
I had to show them how to do everything pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, they learned along the way,
Yeah.
but coming in, they had low experience.
Got it. All right. So 15 months later,
Yes.
all in 500.
Yes.
What did it appraise for?
1.12 million.
Wow. 1.12 million, and you're all in at 500,000. And how much were you able to get out of that?
So to acquire the property, this was another one where I went to the banks and they were not hearing it. They did not want to. I had, a good percentage of the down payment, but the banks wanted nothing to do with it. I went the hard money route. And so I did that, 12% interest. So when I did the refi, we had to pay back the hard money lender, which was fine, that worked out. So if you do the appraisal value times 75% minus what I owed the hard money lender, I got a check for $795,000.
Wow. So the 100,000 that you put into it, was that hard money? The hard money person's money?
No, that was some rents, some savings.
Okay. Got it.
Some
so
money on the side.
All in, you probably had around 50, 60K at most of your own money in it, not factoring in the money from the rent.
I would say that's about right, yeah.
And you got a check for how much?
$795,000.
$795,000 in 15 months.
Yes, that was my biggest home run.
That's great. Yes. Netting $730,000 in 15 months. And it's a refinance, so it's not taxed, right? Because it's your money.
Right.
And so then what'd you do with that 795, but netting 730?
So that funded future acquisitions.
Okay, and when was that refinance?
That would have been at the end of 2016.
Okay. 2016 at the end, 17, 18, 19, okay. Now what'd you do with that money?
So the next purchase was a 44 unit it's just outside Price Hill. I call it Price Hill, but technically it's not. That was a 44 unit for $595,000.
How'd you finance it?
Traditional bank.
Okay, and how did you find it?
MLS. Well, I take that back. No, it wasn't. It was a broker who had not put it on the MLS, but it was a broker I was familiar with who was the broker on a previous deal on the 24 unit. So he was familiar with me.
Right, okay. And so he was not actively marketing the deal.
He was marketing to his email list.
To his email list, okay. So he was promoting it, and then he reached out to you. And what do you think you saw with that deal that others didn't, or others weren't willing to pay the price that you paid?
It had some deferred maintenance. It wasn't terrible, but it had some deferred maintenance. It's kind of a rougher neighborhood, kind of. It's kind of a rough area, but it's in a dead end, so you don't have a lot of the neighborhood problems in the dead end. So it's it's good in that way.
When you're driving in an area that is rough, is there anything that you see that would deter you from investing in the area? Or are you just like, doesn't matter the area, if it's a good deal, I'll invest there?
If the maintenance is just terrible, like You can see in the window and see the sky because the roof isn't, part of the roof is missing. That kind of deters me a little bit.
Why?
I would still consider it,
That
but-
surprises me, because it's a major value add deal.
Yeah, but, I mean, you have several factors. One is the city. The city has condemned it. They're determined to knock it down. They want permits, and they want to redo all the electrical and the plumbing and all that. So, it can be done, but the cost is gonna go higher.
So that's about the property, but I was asking about the area. So what about the area? Is there anything that through research or through word of mouth that it was just like, you know what, I've done some rough stuff, but I'm not gonna go there?
I mean, it all factors in. I probably would go anywhere, but if it's a hotbed for shootings or that sort of thing, or if it's a high congregation area, like for example, there's an apartment building and a quickie shop right next door.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
No.
Because in the quickie shop, everybody's going to loiter, and you have no control over that, and they're going to keep loitering.
Mm-hmm.
If they're all loitering in your target apartment building, that's a good thing. You can kick them all out.
Mm-hmm.
You control that part.
Do you have security at your
No.
part? So how do you just kick them out?
I do.
You do it.
You have to be careful, but I mean, yes, we do.
Got it, okay. So that property parlayed into what? What was the next one?
So the 44 unit was one acquisition, 2017. 2017, by the way, was awesome. Then, on the same day, I purchased a 13 unit in Dayton. This was a good deal too, smaller, but a good deal, $90,000. It's a 12 unit and a house,
Okay.
not vacant.
What's the business plan?
That was far away. I mean, the others were 5 or 6 miles, whatever. This was an hour's drive away. What brought the value of that down was there was a vacant house next door, a big vacant house with boarded up windows. And that's always going to drive the price down. So my little trick there was I said I have to knock that house down. And I wanted to be able to be sure I can knock that house down before I bid on this, because no one really wants to live next to. They come out of their door and they see a big vacant house, boarded up windows, and all the trouble that those kind of buildings bring. So it's a long story, but basically I got in touch with some old guys that owned it, and because of how it was set up, I couldn't buy it, but I said, okay, how about I just knock it down for free? And it'll lower your taxes, and they were behind on taxes anyway, they shouldn't. Go ahead, I don't care. So we knocked it down.
You get a written agreement for that before
Yes.
you do? Yeah. And so now you knock it down. Is there anything at all there? Did you plant a garden? in it?
Beautiful yard. No, we
Beautiful
didn't plant, yeah, but it's just a beautiful straight lawn.
Yeah.
Now they have a backyard.
So you were under contract with the other property?
This was all quick, but basically, I got into agreement with them before I put the final offer on.
Okay.
Or I think it was during the inspection period, I think.
During the inspection?
Yeah.
So how long did it take you, you said it's a long story, we don't have to go into it all, but how long did it take you from initially seeing the boarded up house to actually it being bulldozed?
Well, the agreement was within 2 weeks. Probably a month later, it was bulldozed.
So
You have
were-
to do certain things with the permit process
Right.
to get it.
But you were able to track the people down who own the house and
Yes.
have that conversation?
Yes.
And just, I'm the person who owns the house. How did that conversation go?
Well, I said, I noticed that it's kind of, abandoned, and I was wondering if you'd sell it. And they say, sure, if you give us, or they weren't even really about the money. The city was kind of after them because they weren't really cutting the grass, they weren't paying the taxes. They really wanted to get rid of it. And I was willing to pay them some money for it.
What'd you
But,
offer them?
Well, we didn't even really get to that because it was a partnership, and a lot of those partners were deceased, and so it was going to go through a probate thing. I don't even understand all the details, but it was going to be hell. So it was a lot easier to just get the written permission to knock it down.
Okay, got it. What's the next deal?
Another smaller one. This is a six unit for $90,000.
We can skip past that.
Okay. And then the next one is a bigger deal. This is a 63 unit for $700,000.
63 unit for 700,000. Okay, and so now you're relative to what you've usually purchased at, you're purchasing at a higher per unit basis, slightly, I believe. I mean, I don't have my
11,
calculator.
11 per door.
11, right, relative to what you used to purchase at. So, what's the business plan there, and is that in a similar area?
It's in the city of Hamilton, maybe 45-minute drive away, something like that. It's a beautiful building. It's actually my favorite building.
Why?
It's large, it's a historic building, it's beautiful architecture. That's where we have our office, a rental office. The units look great. It was in good shape. It did not have a lot of deferred maintenance. I got lucky on that.
And did you refinance it?
Yes.
And what did it refinance at?
It appraised lower a lot. This was it appraised a lot lower than I expected. It appraised for 1.1 million, minus the mortgage that we had on there. Give us a cash out refi check of 349,000.
Over what period of time?
Maybe a year and a half.
Got it. Any other large ones?
No.
No? Okay. So your model is pretty straightforward. You go in, you buy in challenging areas,
Yep.
you are put really hands-on,
Yep.
and then renovating the units, increasing the value, focused primarily on just getting them renovated and leased up
Yep.
to high-quality residents, and then you refinance the cash out.
Yep.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
You said, last question I'm going to ask you, the question I ask everyone, you said you used to not have a management company, but now you do.
It's an employee.
It's an employee.
Yes.
Okay, so you have your own,
It's internal, but
Management
I
company.
personally don't do it anymore.
okay. What are some things that you made sure to train that person on that perhaps would not be typical based on your experience, or maybe might just be something that would be interesting for the listeners?
Man, I can't think of any. I mean, normally it just follows the rules of property management. I don't know that there's too many things. I mean, there's a lot of integration with us. Sometimes they can wear different hats where maybe a separate property management company may not get into, but more or less it's a vanilla position.
I don't think they would agree with that. I'm just my gut. I don't know this person, but I bet they wouldn't call it a vanilla position. All right, what's your best real estate investing advice ever?
I would say have integrity. I don't know what is with real estate, but real estate is a magnet for people who are pretenders and scammers, and you see it with gurus who prey on these newbies. For example, they'll have a session for $50 and people attend, and all it is the sales pitch for the next level, which is $1,000, which is the next level for $20,000. So that kind of disgusting. Then wholesalers, not all wholesalers. Some wholesalers have integrity. They announce themselves as wholesalers, but other guys are always deceiving people. I hate that. And then the other one is I've had people want to buy these apartment buildings, pretend they have the money, make a good offer, we get into contract. Now all this money that they're trying to raise it, they don't have any access to the money, and then end up walking away, and then sometimes they don't even want to put up the earnest money, or they want to fight to get their earnest money back, even though they had it tied up for a couple months. So all of that, I really suggest anyone getting into business, perform with integrity.
On the last point, did they pass their deadline, so then their earnest money was non-refundable?
Yeah, they definitely.
So when the dust settled, did you end up keeping it?
It depends on which one, but yes, on the most recent, I kept it. On the other one, they fought. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense because of the legal stuff. You just keep your earnest money.
We're doing lightning round. You ready for the best ever
Yes.
lightning round?
Yes.
All right. First quick word from our best ever partners. Best ever book you've recently read?
I read Moby Dick in 11th grade, and I didn't finish it, so
Is that the most recent book you
that's the
read?
most recent.
Student of experience.
No, I do read. I listen to podcasts. I'm on the internet learning constantly, Bigger Pockets, that sort of thing. Just books aren't for me.
Oh, best way to learn how to renovate a unit.
To learn how to renovate?
Yeah, learn about the
If
process.
you're going to learn it yourself, there is so much online. YouTube, I mean, there are guys that put these videos up, and many of them are great. I've learned a lot of things by using YouTube.
Best ever clauses you have in a purchase contract whenever you're buying a distressed property. If you have that in your sheet, I'll be shocked.
You know, I actually
'cause
have-
I'm just giving you questions that are coming.
I
to my
have
head.
4 keys to find good deals.
Okay, let's hear 'em.
Let's see. Okay, number 1, have cash or financing ready. I have lost a couple deals and they kill me inside, even though they're old. That I did not have the cash or the financing ready, and I lost it, and so that's the first thing. Number 2 is just as far as finding the deals, follow up on leads and listings consistently. You can't just look at it and forget it for 2 weeks. You have to consistently do it. I don't do it every day, but I do it pretty often.
Do you have an example of when you did not get the lead or did not get the deal, but then you followed up and then you got it?
Yeah, the 18 unit was one where I was going through the banks. I thought I was going to lose it, and then it came through with a partner that had the money. Number 3, this is a little different than most people do it. I do 90% of my due diligence before I make an offer. And by that I mean I have enough experience hands-on that I can go into a building and pretty much know what needs to be done in the building. And that's mainly my main due diligence that I do. Of course, we want to look at title, we want to look at all those other things, but the majority of my due diligence I do before the offer. And if I can't get in, I can still offer, but it's going to discount the offer. Well, that's number 4. Make a calculated offer. Include all the different factors. Neighborhood, if there's something that you can't get into, still make an offer, but it's got to be discounted.
I've got a property. A broker says you've got to. I tell my broker, have any prospective buyer submit their offer, and then I'll release the financials. It's dumb, but people do that. How would you approach discounting your offer for my property?
Okay. I care about rent rolls, and I don't really care about P&Ls. Because P&Ls, when you have experience, you can kind of figure it out. You know what it'll insure for, more or less. You know what the water and the electricity, once you have the rent roll, you know what everything else is. So really what I need is the rent roll. And even if you don't give it to me, if I'm doing a tour, I can ask the tenants. So that's really the information I need.
And the rent roll shows the potential income, but the P&L will show the actual income, right?
Yeah, what I want to know is where are the rents? And, well, I would like to know who's paying, but really, how full is it?
Got it. Okay, interesting. Best ever way like to give back to the community?
I like to help folks who are newer. So I attend many meetups every month, some in Dayton, and that's one of my favorite things to do.
And how can the best ever listeners learn more about what you got going on?
You can, if you have any questions or want to follow, some of what we're doing, email me. Would be the best way.
Okay. You want to give out the email?
Sure. Teran, so GTERAN @yahoo.com.
Enjoyed our conversation, Gaston, and impressive stuff. Congrats. And now we'll open it up to questions from the best ever listeners or people here hanging out.
I got 2 quick ones and then a maybe longer one. Is most of your debt recourse or non-recourse?
And will you repeat the questions?
Yes. Gentleman asked if the debt is recourse or non-recourse. All of it is recourse.
What's your average per square foot rent across your portfolio, if you know that off the top of your head?
In general, rents for a one-bedroom, they're, let's say, $440 with maybe 460 square foot, something like that. And then we have, efficiencies in two bedrooms.
Cool. And then last bigger question was, obviously you are pretty key to your operation and your business plan. You put a lot of your own time and heart and soul into it. Do you see your business model changing as you have to start hiring employees to grow?
Yes, the question was basically what as far as scaling and employee count, what the plans are. Right now, I have 3 rehab. I count myself as a rehab, so really there's 4 rehab guys. There are 2 full-time maintenance guys and 1 full-time property manager. And basically I want to grow that in all instances. The rehab crew I want to grow, and I want the property manager to be fully independent. I hate when I have to get into the property management side. I really like doing more of the rehab and the acquisition side.
Thanks.
You mentioned you try to make your apartments nice, but not too nice. What can I expect if I walk into your apartment? Like, what would it look like, and what are things maybe you don't do or you do because of the area?
So my favorite floor is like I said, the ceramic tile floor, usually all over. And then for vanities, that's a good way. Vanities get beat up. Like a bathroom vanity will often leak and people don't tell you about it, that sort of thing, or get kicked or whatever. So I would usually go like a Lowe's and just get one that's $120. Looks new. It's not fancy at all, but it's solid. The door works right. So I'll spend some money there, and the faucets, that kind of thing.
Good. Couple of questions. You have one person you're calling property manager for 240 units. What are that one person's responsibilities for 240 units?
Okay.
I should ask that.
What,
Good question.
what are the responsibilities for the property manager, given the number of units that we have? So lease up is a leasing agent is a big part of his job. The other is receiving maintenance calls. I would like in the future to kind of split that up, but right now he is receiving the maintenance calls. He doesn't do any maintenance, he just puts it online on we use Rent Manager, he'll put it on there, and then the maintenance guys will see it, go, and then clear it once they're done. He'll have some other duties, like, if there's like some bills that need to be managed or that kind of thing, if there's a dumpster issue or, that kind of thing.
And then move-outs and evictions?
Eviction, my wife is an attorney, so she does our evictions. So he will, the property manager will do the eviction notices. Right now we're kind of alternating. Sometimes I'll go to court, sometimes he'll go to court.
Okay, and then you said you use a management software called Rent Manager.
Yes.
What does that do for you?
Rent Manager is the company's LCS. They're based in Cincinnati. They're our database. So we put all our tenant information in the system. We run our rent payments through there, so it can tell us quickly who's delinquent, who's not. It can run our financials. All the P&Ls that then feed our taxes are done there. We recently implemented electronic pay, so now tenants have an other option besides mailing a money order. Now they can pay with credit card, ACH, or they can go, I think, to Walmart and pay cash, which surprisingly a lot of people like to do.
All right, cool. Thank you.
What type of compensation does a property manager in that position get?
$40,000.
Is there a key to finding good tenants for rougher neighborhoods?
What's the key to finding tenants in rougher neighborhoods? Yes. When I talk to a tenant, I'm always listening, and I'll shut up and let them talk, and after they're done talking, I'll be quiet, and they hate the uncomfortable silence, and they'll keep talking. And here's what I'm listening for. If they say things like, oh, I'm working a temp job, you don't want that. If they say I'm in between jobs, you don't want that. If they're talking about anything like family drama, anything like that, you don't want any of that. If they're lying, sometimes they'll say something, oh, I haven't had an eviction in 10 years, and then you go, you double check on the clerk of court's website, you see the eviction, boom, they're lying. And then the other is if they're rushing to move in, oh, I need it by tomorrow. And they're, that's a red flag. You really want people to put the deposit down and move in 3 weeks. That's how it's supposed to be done. And even in rough neighborhoods, people will do that. But if it's a hurry, you got to ask questions. Something's a little off there usually.
Do you have any other screening processes that you employ?
As far as screening, we do not do a credit check. I can't base this on facts, but I assume that a lot of the credit scores we would see would be pretty low. What we do check is criminal and eviction. Those are the main, and of course we want to verify that there is income, whether it's something like Social Security or a job. They provide check stubs or pay stubs. We want to see that.
Any income to rent ratio that you look for?
The property manager has that. Usually it's not as strict as some have it, but I forget what ratio he uses.
May you please elaborate on creating your property management company? At what point did you hire your first employee? How many units did you have? At what point did you hire a second one? How did you find your property manager superstar?
I hired my property manager way too late. I was near mental breakdown at that point when I hired. So it was that day where I bought the 44 unit and the 13 unit, and we already had 100 so units, and I was still working full time. Well, I know at that point I was decreasing from 5 days a week to 1 day a week in the accounting world. But yeah, I probably should have done it a little earlier. So to answer your question, I'm a little crazy, but I personally can do 100 units with the stuff, but once you cross 100 units, you really need a property manager.
How'd you find them?
That one, I think the first guy was Craigslist, I think, but now I use normally Indeed.
Section 8, I haven't heard you mention Section 8. Are you using Section 8 to affordable housing?
The question was if we use Section 8. Rarely. We used to have across the portfolio maybe 7 Section 8. They've gotten tougher as far as maintenance requirements. For example, one that kept bugging me was some of our parking lots, especially on Cincinnati is very hilly. Some of the parking lots have some areas where they're a little rough, and they started being very picky about that, and I didn't think it was worth to repave in order to get some Section 8 tenants in. So we've kind of dialed that down. I think we're down to 1 Section 8 tenant. And people say it's guaranteed rent. Well, not really, because even if Section 8 pays 3/4, you still have to chase down the 1/4 that the tenant owes. So it's not really guaranteed.
What's your current occupancy?
We have about 12 vacancy. We're 90%, 90 plus, just a little over 90%, I'd say.
So you've turned down a lot of potential tenants. Has anyone ever pulled, you discriminated against them for some reason?
Not really. You have to be really careful about that.
How do you avoid that?
Usually if you give them a direct answer, you don't string them along. You give them a direct answer and you say, look, you had a misdemeanor or a felony X number of years ago. We don't accept that. I'm sorry. And, they move on. If you're vague or if you're mean to them, you're not helping yourself.
Any other questions? Got last two. Yes, sir.
All right. Why do you choose to keep property management internal instead of hiring a property management company to do?
That's a good question. It's something that I've kind of wrestled with. I think the main would be repairs. I do like keeping repairs in-house. I do like having some control over that. I always have feared, I've never used a property management company. I've always feared that if they start managing the repairs, they might take advantage of, getting their money, not through the rent collection, but through the repair process. I always wanted to avoid some of that.
Last one.
For your step number 3, you talk about estimating costs in your head. I'm assuming that came through experience. What did you do in the beginning? So you really reportionate it. Was there anything like over the internet or any apps or anything you use?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Apps to estimate costs. Anything you use in particular other than your experience in your head?
Now, no. It's
Before?
It's on my head. Other than maybe a roof. Once you know the square footage, you can multiply and figure out what a new rubber roof would cost. Before I had to do some research, maybe talk to someone that might be more experienced in a certain thing. But yeah, now you have to write it down. You can't remember it all, but you write everything down, you multiply, you kind of get a feel for everything. You look at the wiring, you look at the plumbing, that sort of thing. You look at the foundation, you want to look at all the corners, make sure you don't have corner settling. The roofs, if there's wet mud on the ceiling, you have to wonder what it's saying.
Cool. Hey, thanks a lot. All right, 7 people who've been here before. 1, please stand up. 2.
Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button below and you will get access to the rest of Joe's videos on real estate investing and apartment syndication.